All right. So, guys, this is special because Guillaume and I are hanging out right now. G, I'm gonna say G because I always butcher your name.
Yeah,
Guillaume. I got that right.
yeah, that was pretty good.
Yeah. So we're waiting to go live right now on all the channels. It's setting live on LinkedIn. That's where we're going to be answering questions. I'll also be answering questions from other channels as well. But G, do you want to give a quick introduction of yourself, who you are, because you've done so many things, and why they call you the mad scientist? You go first while I sort out this live stuff.
Yeah, sure. Man, I've been doing like some flavor of marketing or demand gen. It's all the same thing for the past, makes me sad, 17 years now. So it's been quite a journey, and that gives me experience and knowledge to kind of pattern match these days. So if I look back, like walking back from now, I spent a couple of years at Drift as VP of Growth, at Segment as VP of Growth. I was an entrepreneur also in the past, and I started a long time ago at Apple, where I spent 5 years in marketing at Apple. So quite a journey. I think the couple of things where I try to differentiate what people call me the mad scientist is in my career I had the opportunity to work in IT security and work with let's say hardcore engineers. And I was as an entrepreneur I also managed the product engineering team, which means I have enough technical chops, even though I'm not an engineer, to be able to work with engineers. And so I've used that skill, that experience in my marketing jobs to bring engineers with me to solve marketing problems. It so happens that we call that growth now, which is great. That's a great name. But like for me, it's just a flavor of technical marketing, of bringing engineering skills and talent to solving marketing problems in different ways. And that is how I compete. And so the outcome that people see is like some crazy marketing campaigns that like bring in data and different tools and whatnot, and say, oh, this is complicated. Sure, it's hard to replicate, but it creates lift. And because it's hard to replicate, it's differentiated as a moat, and I can achieve it because I've got engineers. That's my thing. That's my stuff. That's why I have a lot of fun.
That's awesome. And by the way, we're going to talk about some of that stuff just so people understand just how crazy effective your stuff is. But what are you working on now? What's the company that you're working on now? And can you tell us a little bit about that so people can reach out if they want?
Yeah, for sure. I actually am working on multiple companies now. Since last year, I do like full-time startup advisory. So around like say around the Series A, Series B, I help B2B SaaS almost exclusively companies set up their growth team, their experimentation process, and reach hypergrowth or I'd say hyperscale. Um, and right now, I'm working with a couple of them. I'm working with G2, so probably the biggest logo there is G2 that people are going to know. The fastest growing is going to be Gorgeous in the e-commerce space right now. It's like blowing up, of course. And there's a couple of others tools I'm using, like the Mad Kudu, Metadata, and Telemize. So I'm kind of like everywhere there, and but they're all MarTech tools.
Got it. And your model, I mean, it's the way I see it is you're coming in almost as if you're the things you're recommending are the highest leverage points, and you're coming in almost as a fractional CMO. You're not, it's not like you're an agency per se, but you're coming in and saying,
Yeah,
hey, do this, this, and this, and then
yeah.
I'll continue to help you.
I like what you said. So just like the CMO, I will not do anything. I will tell other people what to do. So that,
But
in that
it's
sense,
the right stuff to do.
well, that we hope.
Yeah.
But yes, totally. I will generally I'll join the calls of each of the companies that I'm helping and join the weekly calls, and I'll observe. I'll also do an audit, and then I'll put them on the framework that I've built over the years of for marketing demand gen teams. That is I'd say a revenue impact framework that very few marketing teams have. I just before we started here, I just left a call of a company I can't name, large company, a couple hundred people, a marketing team of 20 plus people on the call, and I was just a fly on the wall to listen. And 1 hour call to go through the experiments that they were going to push next week. I did not hear a single metric. Not a single metric was named. No baseline, no desired lift, no revenue, not even leads, nothing. And you know what? That's kind of like the state of, I'd say, a good chunk of the marketing teams that I meet. All right. And my job is to observe that and tell them, hey, there's a world where we can forecast the revenue impact of each of those experiments and decide which ones we want to take on, what's the effort, what's the costs, so that and have a very high velocity as a model so that we are incentivized to add more revenue.
Got it. And what does that model look like, just so people get an idea?
Yeah, and honestly, to be transparent, I'm not the creator of this model. My friend Darius Contractor created it with his team when he was the, I'd say, I think it was one of the head of growth at Dropbox. I don't know his exact title, but he was at Dropbox in the growth division. And he created this model called Evelyn, Evelyn, which means experimentation velocity engine, which
Sounds
is
like a robot.
it's an Airtable database, which is funny because now he actually left and he's at Airtable running growth back there. Makes sense, but I changed it a bit. But the idea is that you have all your experiments, you have a big backlog of experiments, which most growth teams have. They have something of a spreadsheet. What I changed is that mine imports from the database real time every day the metrics that we're tracking. So the signups, maybe the leads or the demos, if that's what you do, right? I import the revenue for the past 30 days, the number, I divide one by the other, and it gives me unit economics. What's the dollar value of a demo? And then when we look at an experiment, we think, hey, how many more demos is this supposed to generate? What's the lift? We say, oh, we think this can generate, like, the goal is going to be like, let's say a 10% lift. Let's say we have 100 demos. Okay, we're going to get 10 more demos. What's the value of a demo? $500? Cool. This is a $5,000 worth experiment. Is this a one-time or repeating experiment? If it's repeating, as most experiments, like it's a monthly thing, let's multiply it by 12. Okay, now we've got 5 times 12, that's 60K. This is a 60K experiment. Okay, cool. How much time are we going to take to ship this? All right. Is it 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days? All right. Imagine now this is like a 3-day thing. So you divide 60 by 3. This is $20,000 per day. Okay. Of course, there's a risk factor. So what's your confidence? If your confidence is 50%, divided by 2, $10,000 per day. That's a pretty good day. All right.
Yep.
My goal, so this is very quick, but like my goal for my team is that everyone hits $1,000 per day or more. Okay, because that's what more or less people cost in the Bay Area when everything is accounted for.
And where is this model published online? You said it's an Airtable document. I mean, if people wanted a template, what could they Google?
Yeah. I think if you hit the bit.ly, so bit.ly/Evelyn, you'll find it. Otherwise, I can put it. We can put it in the podcast notes.
Yeah.
I'll show it with Eric. That version doesn't have all of those refinements, but otherwise you can reach out to me and I can share that version. But like conceptually, just gonna think like, can I estimate for each of my experiments what is the dollar value if things go as desired? What's the dollar value goal? It's super important because you know what? If you take a step back for all the people in growth and marketing that are listening to us today in the podcast or wherever, a lot of the issues that we face in marketing and growth are actually org challenges. The rest of the organization has a very low trust in your ability to actually impact the numbers. And because you don't really present them or because your numbers are disconnected, I'd say, from the sales efforts. And so CEOs and VPs of sales are like, this is BS data, all right? I'm just like, the marketing team is talking about leads. They're talking about influence revenue. Like, we don't trust that. Okay. And when the CEO asks questions like, hey, Eric, what are you shipping next month? Like, what's the impact next month? They're going to say, oh, we've got those 5 experiments. And he's like, so what's the impact? He said, well, we have 5 experiments. It's like, no. What's the impact? Right. And I've been in that game for so long. I got to solve that problem. I'm not going to convince CEOs, like, unless I have like real metrics to present, and those metrics are dollars. It's the only thing that really matters. And so I mapped my org, I mapped my incentives and the quotas for my team and the process on sales teams. Everyone understands the sales team. They have pipelines of, they have quotas. They've got deals, some of which close, some of which don't, over a period of time. Everyone understands that. You can't expect a salesperson to like close successfully 100% of their deals. There's no such thing, right? And so there's a close rate. I have a close rate. It takes them time to work a deal. It takes me time to do an experiment. They have a queue of deals that they can close over the next 2 months. I have a queue of experiments I can work on the next 2 months. If you put more salespeople, you can work more deals. You give me more engineers, I can do more experiments. And so I've mapped all of those things exactly. So now I present to the CEOs, I can say, hey, this is the backlog. Okay, we have a backlog of like 500,000 of things that with the confidence and the weighted averages, we can hit over the next 6 months. And the CEO is going to say, how can we move faster? That's easy. This is quoted for 200 days of work. So just give me an extra engineer, and I can show you exactly how faster I can move that revenue down the pipeline. I can tell you what I'm doing next week. I can show you the past data of the experiments we've shipped and how valuable they were and where my confidence comes from. And so it's really hard to argue on the model or on the experiment. You can say, you can say, I don't like this experiment. You can say, I don't believe the lift you're going to generate. But that's about it.
I love that. And so to me, this sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, we're talking a lot about experiments. The other ways is use the ICE model, right? Impact, confidence, ease, or whatever. This seems like a more complete version of that. This is an experimentation framework, correct?
Yeah.
So if I share my screen,
tried and I stopped using the ICE model because it's really hard to present externally to the team. Like you say, I have this experiment, and the CF cost is like it's a 6 out of 10.
Well, it's vague and subjective.
Yeah, what does it mean 6? Like impact is like 7. What does 7 mean? And like how do you sum all of the impact column and present to your CEO? I've got a 6, I've got a 7, I've got a 5. Next week I bring those 3. Like, what's the impact? What's your commit? Like, you've got to be, if you want to succeed, you got to be able to answer what's your commit. And I can say to my CEO, my commit is $120,000 over the next 2 weeks, and I'll hit it. All right. And the CEO is like, okay, I can track that.
Yep. Okay. And this is amazing. I almost think you should write a book on this, or whoever that came up with it should write a book on it. Here, by the way, I'm going to share my screen real quick because I think I found it. But it's this Airtable document over here, right?
Yes, correct.
And people can, if you Google Airtable, Evelyn, you should be able to find it.
They'll find it.
Yeah. But I guess my question is, for people thinking about implementing this, probably not when you're starting out initially, not from the bottom, Series A, maybe you're doing, $1 million in ARR or so plus. I guess my question will go to you. When should they start implementing this, and how can they get started with this without making it too complicated?
Yeah, I just did a workshop for a seed stage company where they wanted to really maximize the conversion rate throughout the funnel, and I implemented it because it's not a lot of costs to implement, and it's a good mindset, and it's a great way to evaluate. For example, like we had very quickly for the seed stage company, we had like 20, 30 ideas that we added into this Airtable framework. And there's very limited resources, small company. So it helped us choose. Should we be Google SSO? Okay, or should we create an onboarding experience? Like, how do you decide, right? And you can only do one, right? So this is a great way to decide.
Got it. Yeah, I think, like usually marketing chats, you and I might be talking about tactics all day, but I love how this is more strategic, and the tactics fit into this, right? So I think it's perfect. So Evelyn is great. I guess here's another question for you. People that are listening to you right now, they're like, oh God, G's really smart. How can they work with you? What are you looking for? How much? Yeah, what can they be expecting? What should they know before reaching out to you to if they want to work with you?
Yeah, that's a tough sell. I'm fully booked for the foreseeable future, and it's only me. I have no other resources.
Yeah.
I do a few workshops for companies that are really compelling, or when somebody I know asks. So when I have a friend, VC, or somebody else that asks me to help a company, and they are the right fit, I only work for B2B SaaS companies. That's
Yep.
where I have my experience, and only those that have enough traction, enough, let's say, volume that experiments would be strongly impactful. I'm trying to have lifts of at least $1 million, right? That's when it starts to be meaningful. Um, anyways, I mean, if you're not at product market fit, if you don't have like kind of like that velocity, this is not what you're trying to do.
Got it.
Okay, what you're trying to do is it's a different framework, and the framework you're trying to do before that is what agencies and others can help you, which is like test every channel to know where are my customers, who is my customer, all right, and where can I find them and at what price. So you're trying to like test one channel after the other, all right, which is really hard to evaluate. You just got to test it, right? But you haven't found, I'd say, like what Brian Balfour describes as a channel market fit.
Got it. Yep. And by the way, you guys should Google that one, channel market fit. Check it out. Good read.
Yeah.
So
Really good read.
talking about, I do want to come back to marketing tactics for a second. So you always see the new stuff before
Yes.
other people do. So what are you seeing? What's working really well
Yes.
that people can be like, oh my God, you're
Yes.
amazing.
Yeah. The first question that people should wonder is like, why do I see it before others? And so I invest some of my time looking at new marketing tools all the time. I do that on purpose. For me, it's a competitive advantage to know the cutting edge technology, tools, or tactics that are coming, because each of those has a shelf life. After some time, it's not that they're no longer relevant, but everybody has them, and so you're not gaining conversion rate that others aren't, right? It's marketing is a constant battle, in very much the same way that product UX is a constant battle. If you come in 2020 with a mobile app or a web app that has a design of 2010, you're going to lose on conversion rate because your experience is going to be crap. Same is true for marketing. So, for example, if you think of things like website personalization, dynamic personalization, usage of like IP data in your marketing, and you're not doing that in 2020, your experience is just not going to be as good. Your CAC is going to go up, and so your company is going to suffer from it. So for me, it's a constant battle. And so I'm always looking for those things, which means I'm dedicating time every week at looking into those small new MarTech companies. I sign up for so many of those small MarTech companies to just see like, what is this? Does it work? Like, can I get some insights? And so that's the why and the how. The what? There's a lot of things happening around. I'd say machine learning applied for marketing, which is very interesting. It's been going on for the past like 2 or 3 years for like larger companies like Pinterest and others, and that is kind of like trickling down to like the masses like us through MarTech tools that enable, I'd say, common marketers to have access to machine learning for marketing. And some of those I'm actually involved with, like metadata is a good example of like machine learning applied to paid advertising for B2B SaaS. IntelliMize is the same thing, but for web optimization. And all of those are extremely interesting in the way that they enable you to personalize or adapt the message to a much smaller audience than what any human could do. If you think about it, if you want to like explain to the audience, almost everyone that does B2B SaaS has done some flavor for like ABM, account-based marketing. And conceptually, ABM is like, I have a small list of super valuable accounts, and I'm going to work them harder by putting humans to craft specific messaging, sometimes a unique landing page, sometimes a unique ad for each of those accounts. So it's so good that they're going to want to pay. Conceptually, it's great. It makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of issues with that. One of those issues is that it doesn't scale well. Like I know companies that are maintaining like 600 unbounced pages, and every time that the brand team says, "Hey, we have a new brand," they're like, "Oh no," right? It doesn't scale well, and so the experience as you go down the ACV ladder to small and smaller businesses gets closer and closer to a bad experience. What if you could have that fantastic ABM personalized experience through all the channels with like human touch, whatnot, but for super small accounts? And what if your competitors were not doing that? Now you are competitive on the experience, and you can gain those potential customers. That's exactly what I do. Obviously, there's a cost issue if you have humans involved or not. Now you're losing money, and so automating that through scripts, through machine learning enables you to bring that experience down the value chain.
Got it. Love it. And you talked about, because you're using so many tools, it's almost wrong for me not to ask what's in your tool stack. What are you excited about tool wise? Because every time I talk to you, there's always a new tool. So tell me, what do you got?
A lot of tools. There's a few tools I'm excited about. So there's a category that's coming up. So I mean, everyone that's here probably has received some flavor of like salespeople doing like one-on-one videos with Loom and stuff like that,
Yeah.
where they record themselves in front of your website or whatnot. And that's a good example of something that is good but doesn't scale that much. There are companies that are doing that at scale, where you can actually have something generate the video for you, like a templated email.
Yeah.
Actually, Intercom did an in-house version like 2 years ago, and now there's a company that does that product. It's very interesting because what it does is that you record a generic video for human that says generic things, or more or less generic things, and on the right, there's a walkthrough on the website, which is done by a crawler, which is recorded on your website. And they match side by side together, then they inject the taglines and messages, and they inject that in the email. So personalized video at scale is one of them. This is pretty cool.
Is there a company that does that right now?
Yes, there is. I could find the name. If I can find the name.
Cool. Well, while you do that, while you think of it, or we can get it afterwards, that's fine too. But Philip here asked from LinkedIn, we got a question, amazing, at 3:30 p.m. I saw a cool trick.
Wait. I found the company.
What is it?
Hippo Video. Hippovideo.io. Hippovideo.io.
Hippo Video. That's funny.
Yeah, I'm not the one choosing the company names.
Yeah.
I can tell you that.
Got it. You got anything else in the tool stack before we answer Philip's question?
Go for it. Let's go to Philip.
Okay. Philip, I saw a cool trick you did with Clearbit automation. Any other tools for mass personalization that you would recommend?
Yeah, I did a lot of tricks with Clearbit around, I'd say both around the email enrichment, which is pretty commonplace these days, and also around the IP enrichment, which is becoming commonplace. I think one of the trickiest things there is to maximize coverage, both for email and IP. So if your key is IP or your key is email, I think going to one provider is no longer enough. You're looking at doing something like that I've done, which is like query multiple providers one after the other. So if you have an email address, you probably want to ping Clearbit first. If there's no response or it doesn't match, like you can go to, Zoom Info, and then you can go to Rocket Reach. So I've built scripts that waterfall from one to the other and that have increased coverage and performance significantly. And the same is true for IP data. Okay, if the IP data, you can then go to 6sense and then to Cognizant and so on and so on and so on. And you got to understand that the IP coverage is really a geo by geo. Clearbit is really good in the US, not that great data in the EU. So in the EU, you want to go to someone else. And in Asia, you want to go to someone else. Okay, so that's all the collection part. And then on the usability, there's a lot of things to like, how do you use that to change the experience? And unfortunately, most marketers, most companies have a vision of enrichment where it's kind of like, we collect the data, we enrich in the backend, we do some analysis, and then we'll put them in personas, and then we'll do something with that later. I'm like, but guys, later, you've lost like 90% of the people. Right? The engagement was before, was on your website. Like, why wait later? Right? And so making that engagement as real time as possible, okay, which means you got to change the experience. The information you gathered, be it on the company because it was an IP data, on the person because it's email data, you got to use it to change the experience, make it relevant. Okay? There's one thing I want to say. You don't need to use Clearbit. You don't, because it's expensive, but like, let's say that you don't have it. Most companies do AdWords. Like almost everyone does AdWords these days, right? Everyone does AdWords. Okay, and most companies have some good notion of like setting up your AdWords account so like it's nicely set and granular with like ad groups and ad sets and ads that are relevant and the landing page, so you have a good quality score. Okay, almost no one uses the information that you paid for, which keyword was clicked, what was the message, what was the promise, what was the offer, to change the experience. And you just paid for that information, and sometimes you paid $10 a click. And people are like, well, the landing page, that's it. Good luck, right? And then I look in the CRM, I look at the salespeople, and I ask the sales guys, they're like, so do you know what this click came from? It's like, nope. I'm like, well, do you have any idea what the offer made them pick? What's the message that made them want to come to us? And I'm like, nope. Like, this is nuts. Like, this is insane, because like if it's $10 a click and we have like a 5% like click rate, this is like a $200 of information we just threw down the drain, right? Per lead. And so like these things such as like value track, which is a great way to capture the information from Google's, and this is the same for Facebook, that almost no one uses, that helps you to, I wouldn't say personalize, but I'd say definitely optimize the experience based on whatever information you're able to gather.
Got it.
So that is like the no one thing, like everyone should be doing that, and almost no one does it.
So Clearbit will enrich, right? But what are you using to actually make the personalization changes? Are you using a CDP? Like, what are you doing?
So yes, I'm using a CDP, although that is not what I'm using for personalization. But my team at Segment is the team that came up with personas.
Yeah.
So that's fun. And so yes, I use it. Though the personalization, the on-site, the web optimization is done with IntelliMize. And so they have like real-time personalization, which is really cool. I have done chat personalization with Drift, obviously. Email personalization, I will tend to prefer Customer.io. It's my tool of choice. I really love them. And then for things like advertising personalization, I'll use metadata. The whole stack is connected through segment personas. So the CDP sits at the middle of it.
Are you a fan of so I know you came from Segment. I think you also talked about Hull.io before too.
I'm the only person to have been advisor to both, and they compete together. Yes.
So you still prefer Segment? I'm just making it clear here.
Yeah. Hull is a French company that they are SMB. They're really SMB focused. And it's more engineering and engineering ops focused. So usability is, let's say, it's slightly more powerful, but you got to code everything. So I would not recommend it. Generally speaking.
That's what happened for us, right? So we set up Hull.io. I think it's probably because I spoke to you, and then so we decided to go with them.
Sorry.
And no, it's fine. We like it, by the way, and I can
it works.
I can nerd up with you on it after. Yeah,
it definitely works. And I use it at one of my fastest growing companies, Gorgeous, is using Hull, because some use cases are done by Hull, not covered by Segment, for sure. Especially stuff around attribution and running some like complex JS and on it, like sure, it requires a level of technicality that is probably out of reach of most teams.
Yeah, I agree. It's very dev heavy. We'll put it that way. I have a follow-up questions, but I'm going to ask this question from Philip. So a follow-up from him. He says, is all of this done via Zapier or APIs?
Yeah, so, both. So first, I have my Zapier t-shirt today. And I was just exchanging emails with Mike, one of the founders of Zapier, yesterday, and reminding me, I looked in my Twitter timeline. I found a tweet that I posted in 2012, so 8 years ago, when they launched, and I said, if this isn't vaporware, this is the best SaaS ever.
Yeah.
And I just retweeted myself yesterday saying that was a pretty good prediction.
Dude, right? I just had a chat with Wade this morning, so it's funny that we have Zapier like all today. It's funny.
I have a lot of respect. They power millions of businesses. Like, I don't know many SaaS companies that have millions of accounts. Just think about that. Like, probably Trello is one of the few ones that was above that.
Yeah, Zapier is one of my favorites, man.
Yeah. So there's a lot of Zapier. And for those who wonder, should I say Zapier or Zapier? The answer is Zapier, because as Mike said, Zapier makes you happier.
Exactly.
There's also a lot of APIs. If you think of segment and personas, you can do cloud integrations these days. So for example, a lot of what I've been doing lately, if you want to go into like the more hacky and advanced stuff, is on predicting who is going to buy, who is likely to buy in my target audience before they hit my website. All of what we've been saying with Eric up to now has been optimizing the post-visit or the on-site experience. Once they click your ad, once they click your SEO, then all of that. And that's good, but that's only part of the equation. A lot of what I've been focusing on is actually going above that in the funnel, right? And predicting within my target market, because I'm a B2B SaaS. I know my target market. Like I have a known quantity of businesses I can sell my product to, and I know who they are. Predicting, listening to signals, building ways to listen. What are they doing right now? What are they thinking? What are the moves? Who should I focus on right now? And so building those what we call intent signals. Okay, and a lot of those I connect to APIs, and those go into segment and I'll normalize. I'll give you one example. I know you're going to ask an example. One example that works for almost everyone is a company called Predict Leads. What they do is that they are a kind of like a natural language processing plus a scraper focused on job openings. So they scrape the top 1 million, I'd say, businesses in the US, the websites to find the job site. They will find all the job listings and they will look at that every day, and they will then do some NLP on the job listing to understand like what kind of job it is, when was it posted, when was it closed, what's the seniority, and they'll then offer that in a nice API to you. And then you can make a query, say, hey, Predict Leads, give me all the companies in the US, 500 people and plus, hiring a VP of sales now. Okay, all that have hired and had just closed the hiring. Okay, because I'd say executive hiring is one of the top reasons why companies buy technology. When somebody joins a company as an exec, they generally are hired to implement some level of change. You're not hired to say, please change nothing, right? That never happens, right? So it means that's the momentum, the temporality is really good. And so I try to monitor that to know, oh, they are hiring a VP of sales. If I'm, for example, Drift and I'm selling to VP of sales, I should know that. I need to start focusing on that account a bit more, focusing on that person. And I did something where I was sending gifts to people who were just joining companies, exactly joining companies, saying, "Hey, congrats for the new gig. Like we're ready for you when you are."
Didn't you also send coffee too?
That's a different experiment. That's an on-site experiment where we try to differentiate. And that's a good example of differentiation. So like if we think of like creating web personalization, like, do you want to inject the company name in the page? I've done that. It's fine. Does that create lift engagement? Debatable. So how can you create an experience that is really valuable? And so that comes through something a bit more complicated, which is if I know the company on the website, I can run some prediction using MadKudu to know how valuable is that company to me. How likely are they to close, right? Have buying signals that tell me that their value or their likelihood to close is high. And if I do, what do I do with that information? We did two things that we tried. The first one, so once we have the data and we know, okay, well, their likelihood to close like 60, 70%, their ACV, average contract value, is like $1,000, which means their value to me now is say like $700. Okay, and my boss tells me I'm ready to spend like 10% of that to close them. That's $70. What do I do with that? Like sending them an email is not a good use of that $70 budget, right? And doing ads is also not a good use. What can I do to impress and maximize the close rate? And the first thing we did with that is run that analysis real time on the site and pop up a chat that instead of saying the typical like, hey, how can we help? Which is like boring, or like, hey, we've okay, it's a bit better, but not great. We would pop a message like, hey, how do you like your coffee? And people were like, what? Ooh, weird, right? Because you're on a business website. What do you mean, like, how do you like my coffee? So they click on it, it would unfurl, and it would open, and it would say like, how do you like a coffee? And people are like with milk? And said, okay, milk. Do you want sugar? And I was like, yeah. And people said, can I have a cappuccino? It's like cappuccino. And it's like, okay, like it seems we should deliver a cappuccino at like 101 California, San Francisco. Is that the right address? And people are like, yeah, like, what's the first name? So Guillaume. It's like, okay, coffee's coming in 12 minutes, right? What was happening in the back end is like IP enrichment, leads calling. Because of IP, we knew the HQ address. We knew that the value of the person was high. Our model detected that we could invest $70. A coffee delivered in San Francisco is about $20, right? I just need the first name, and then I connect through Postmates, the API backend, and then we place an order. And now Guillaume's getting a cappuccino at 101 California, which is the HQ of Segments. That experience is differentiated. Almost no one does that. It is memorable because that's a weird and funny experience. And now, if you think about it, Guillaume's waiting for a cappuccino at 101 California. It's kind of like I'm like shaky. I'm not sure what's going to happen, right? And now there's a sales rep that jumps in the chat and says, "Hey, Guillaume, thanks for like playing around with the bot. Like while you're waiting for the cappuccino, like, do you want a quick demo? It's just going to be like 10 minutes, just the time for the coffee to arrive." Now there's reciprocity. I can't really say no to that, right? Because that would not be cool. And so that was one of my lowest cost per demo ever.
How much was it?
So the cost per demo, so the cost per cappuccino is like about $20.
Yeah,
the conversion rate on demo is about 50%. So the cost per demo is about $40.
Wow.
Not taking into account whatever it cost me to bring them to the page.
Got it. Phenomenal.
So for a product like Segment where the ACV is like in the tens of thousands, like amazing cost per demo, especially because those were pre-qualified. We know it's the right company.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. I can do this all day, but I do want to work towards wrapping up, and I want to chat with you afterwards as well. So I'm gonna change up my final questions. Who are you following? Who's a growth marketer you're following right now that might be like an up and comer or just someone that you've liked all along?
So people have liked all along. I think the entire group at Reforge. So Darius Contractor and Brian Balfour and Andrew Chen, all of those people are like, really good and I learn a lot. There's like all the mentors and speakers at Reforge, which I'm extremely fortunate to be part of. It's a fantastic crew. Lots of experience and knowledge there. So I get a lot from that. On the up and coming, I'd say the team I have at Gorgeous is extremely good. I think the growth PMs I've had along my career, I've been very fortunate to work with very good growth PMs. So if you look at Drift, for example, Matt Bilotti at Drift has a ton of potential. If you look at Gorgeous, Sonia Moati is also really, really good. So yeah.
Got it. And then final question for me would be so, Andrew Chen writes good essays. Brian writes some great stuff as well. Andy Johns writes great stuff too. Huh?
I don't.
You do.
Don't.
You do,
nope.
And then you're presenting all the time too. So
I am presenting. I'm not writing articles though.
But who do you like? Who do you read? Is there anybody that you like? Oh, I love their YouTube channel. I love their blog. Anybody like that? Like I just gave you a couple examples.
Yeah. I think all those are all legit. I'd say, unfortunately, most of the really good stuff I get is not public. There's truth to that. I invest time in being part of a few communities that are extremely valuable. Those can be WhatsApp groups, Slack groups, and there's a lot I get from there. There's one thing, I have one unfair advantage. As people can hear, I'm obviously partially French, and for everybody that has part of their history in one of those third world countries like myself, there are very scrappy marketers. Like the US is flush with, like, even in these tough times of recession and whatnot, like there's a lot, but the costs are much higher here, and marketers have a lot more cash. In countries like France, Europe, or other places like India, marketers are very, very scrappy. I belong to some of those communities because I learn a lot of from there, and I scale those ideas. All right, I scale ideas that I take from small French growth companies that their market is restricted or they just don't have the budget, but the idea is really good.
So you basically, there's a seed idea and then you have the funds, so you blow it up.
Exactly. But very much like VCs in the US will fund a US-based company that just replicates a good idea that comes from abroad.
Got it. I love it. All right. So Guillaume, what's the best way for people to find you online?
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, super
Just
active.
yeah, super
There you
active on
go.
LinkedIn. LinkedIn is why I handle everything.
Awesome. All right. Thanks so much for doing this, Guillaume.